This is Samsung's new Galaxy Z Flip5, which builds upon its predecessors with a large edge-to-edge cover display and a new hinge. Those are definitely some nice improvements, but are they enough? I'm Will for GSM Arena, and let's check out the Z Flip5's pros and cons in our full review. Flip-style foldable phones like the Galaxy Z Flip5 operate in much the same way. The flexible inner screen allows the phone to collapse from a standard smartphone size to a compact square clamshell. And the secondary outer screen lets you perform some basic tasks while the phone is folded. In the past, these cover displays have been cute and interesting, but they were just too small, which really limited their usefulness. This year though, that has all changed. First, the Moto Razr 40 Ultra's large edge-to-edge second display. And now with the Z Flip5 in what Samsung calls a flex window. It fills the whole space on the top of the folded phone, except for a cutout around the two cameras. This display is a 3.4-inch OLED with a pixel density of 306 ppi and a 60Hz refresh rate. This is a major change compared to the 1.9-inch cover screen on the Galaxy Z Flip 4. The flex window display is quite customizable, with plenty of interesting backgrounds to choose from. You can check your notifications from here and even respond to texts without having to open the phone. And you can access your quick toggle settings on the flex window too. Of course, the larger size boosts one of the main functions of the display, to serve as a viewfinder so you can take selfies with the main cameras. Unlike the Razr 40 Ultra's secondary screen, the one on the Z Flip5 is optimized for widgets rather than full Android apps. There are widgets for all sorts of different functions, like a calendar, the weather, a compass, and more. You can add and even download additional widgets, and there's third-party support as well. And within the multi-widget view, you can see a bunch of them all at once, like you're in an app drawer. But if you want to, you can actually get some Android apps to work on this display too. You can enable this by a toggle within the Galaxy Lab settings. Then you'll be able to run 5 apps: YouTube, Google Maps, Netflix, Google Messages, and Samsung Messages. Or you can go even further if you don't mind jumping through some hoops. You can install Samsung's Good Lock app and enable the launcher widget. This way you can get virtually any app to work, including games. It can be a hassle to get running though, and not all apps are compatible. With the external display out of the way, let's see what else the Z Flip5 has to offer. The design of the phone is very similar to that of the previous model, though Samsung claims it's more eco-friendly, being made from more recycled materials. You also get sturdier Gorilla Glass Victus 2 protection over the cover panels. Just like last year, there is IPX8 rated protection. That's ingress protection against water, but not dust or sand. The Armor aluminum hinge has been revamped this year. It's reinforced by a dual rail structure to be extra sturdy. Just as before, it can stay open at different angles, which can be useful for certain tasks. But the main upgrade is that while previous generations maintained a wedge-shaped gap when closed, with the new hinge, the Z Flip5 can fold flat, with no gap. And the foldable inner screen has undergone some changes too. It's a 6.7-inch foldable OLED with a 1080p resolution and a 120Hz refresh rate. That's all the same as last year's panel. However, the screen is a bit brighter this time around. We measured up to nearly 800 nits maximum with a manual brightness slider, and this can boost to 1100 nits in auto mode in bright sun. The display is sharp and contrasty, and it has HDR10+ support too. The color accuracy can be good as well, depending on the color settings you choose. The crease in the middle where the screen folds over is still quite noticeable though. Just like last year, the fast 120Hz refresh rate smooths out movement on screen, and we saw it dial down to 24Hz when idling to save energy. Samsung claims it can go down to 1Hz, but we didn't run into such use cases. For audio, the Z Flip5 has a pair of stereo speakers. They have good loudness, just like the previous model, and the sound quality is comparable too, with clean vocals, nice treble, and decent low end. Through the provided link, you can listen for yourself and compare. You can wake up and unlock the Z Flip5 with the fingerprint reader built into the power button. It's fast and responsive. And the Z Flip5 can come with 256 or 512 gigs of storage on board, though neither is expandable through microSD. The interface of the phone is Samsung's OneUI 5.1.1 on top of Android 13. It's very similar to the OneUI 5.1 you'd find on the regular flagships, but with a few extra features enabled by the novelty form factor. These include the features and widget support for the secondary screen. And besides that, the phone will allow certain apps to split their interface in two, including a touchpad, to make better use of the two screens. This also comes in handy with the camera app, allowing you to control the cameras while the phone is propped up to act as its own tripod. Samsung promises solid software support too, 4 years of OS upgrades and 5 years of security patches. You can find out more about the specific features of OneUI 5 in our dedicated video. Another major development we get with the Z Flip5 is a new chipset. It's the most powerful available on Android phones right now, a Snapdragon 8 Gen 2 for Galaxy. Compared to the regular Snapdragon 8 Gen 2 you find in top Android flagships, this one has a slightly higher CPU clock speed. As expected, there's way more power under the hood here than in the previous generation. Plus, the phone uses more advanced memory tech with UFS 4.0 storage and LPDDR5X RAM. However, much like last year, the thermal management of the Z Flip5 leaves more to be desired. We experienced heavy thermal throttling during a prolonged stress test. The battery life of the Z Flip5 is a bit better this year in spite of it having the same battery capacity at 3700 mAh. In our battery life tests, the Z Flip5 posted an endurance rating of 87 hours, which is good for a flip phone. Plus, since the cover screen is now more useful, you may not need to open the phone as much, saving even more energy. There's support for 25-watt wired charging, but as usual with Samsung, you don't get a charger in the box here. With a fast enough wired adapter, we were able to charge the phone from 0 to 50% in 30 minutes. Not awful, but far from impressive. There's also support for wireless charging. Now on to the cameras, which are the same as on the Z Flip 4. There's a 12-megapixel main camera and a 12-megapixel ultra-wide unit. During the day, photos from the main cam are great. Detail is excellent, and textures are rendered in a natural way, while noise is kept to a minimum. Colors are vivid, and contrast is high, yet the dynamic range is quite wide. The photo quality here is very similar to that of the Galaxy S23. Portrait mode shots look very good, the subject detection is great, and skin tones look nice too. The default level of blur is a bit much, but you can dial that down. Like I mentioned before, you can take selfies with the main camera using the Flex View screen as a viewfinder. These are better than just about any selfie camera out there, with excellent detail and dynamic range and vivid colors. In comparison, here are some selfies taken with the regular 10-megapixel front-facing cam. They're okay, but there's less detail and the skin tones aren't always on point. Back to the main cam for some low-light shooting, and these photos look pretty great. In dark conditions, the phone will automatically use night mode processing, and you get abundant detail, lively colors, and good dynamic range. 4K video from the main cam is excellent. There's a lot of fine detail with mature processing. Colors are pleasantly saturated, and the dynamic range is nicely wide. Electronic stabilization works well on the Z Flip5. Walking shakiness is barely detectable, and pans are nicely smoothed out. At night, the main cam does a fair job at recording video. The exposure and detail are good, and colors remain lively. There is noise though, and the shadows are a bit soft. Now let's talk about the ultra-wide cam. Its daylight photos have great colors, low noise, and wide dynamic range. While the detail level is very good in the center, there's pronounced corner softness. The ultra-wide cam offers a dramatic perspective for selfies, though the lack of autofocus does limit its usability for especially wacky framing. In the dark, the ultra-wide performs well, capturing good detail and okay colors and dynamic range. There's a bit of noise, but it's not a big issue. If you turn on the night mode for the ultra-wide cam, you may end up with some smoothed out details, but the colors are nicer and the dynamic range is improved. And finally, 4K footage from the ultra-wide cam is likable. It isn't the sharpest outside of the center of the frame, but the colors, contrast, and dynamic range match the main cams. So there you have it guys, the Galaxy Z Flip5 takes the flip design to the next level with its large secondary screen. And besides that, the new chipset, brighter display, better battery life, and improved hinge make it a worthwhile upgrade of the Z Flip 4. Keep in mind, the Moto Razr 40 Ultra did do the large cover display thing first, and that screen has a higher resolution and refresh rate too, not to mention support for Android apps straight out of the box. But the Z Flip 5 has its own advantages too. A more powerful chipset, better cameras, and IPX8 water resistance. It's really well-rounded, and if you're looking for a flip phone, this is arguably the one to get. Thanks for watching guys. If you're looking for alternatives to the Z Flip 5, you can check out our Moto Razr 40 Ultra review. Another option is the Oppo Find N2 Flip. Let us know what you think, and I'll see you on the next one.